You're welcome back to the pause. Let's now head to the Supreme Court, shall we? Well, yes, we can. More than 2 years ago, a former Attorney General Martin Amidu initiated an action against businessman Alfred Agbeshi-Woyome at that court, the Supreme Court. He argued that the state had wrongfully paid more than 51 million cedis to the businessman. The court ordered that the said money be retrieved. Well, Mr. Amidu headed to the court sometime last week asking that he is allowed to orally examine Mr. Woyome. Mr. Amidu said 2 years after securing that ruling, the state was clearly not interested in retrieving that money quickly, following the Attorney General opting not to examine Mr. Woyome despite the court granting it. The Supreme Court has again granted the request of Mr. Amidu and fixed November 24, and if you check your calendar, that's exactly next week, Thursday, as the date for the showdown. Well, joining us is Joseph Akable, just returned from the Supreme Court, listened to everything, and is joining us now with the details. Joseph, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Francis.
So what happened in court today?
Well, so it was straight ahead, the judgment coming from the court, and first and foremost, Justice Enini Yeboah talked about the arguments that counsels on both sides had put before the court. In fact, even before he read the judgment, Mr. Amidu pointed out that he had wanted to file something, a written document, but he couldn't file that and had wanted to do that orally. The judge declined allowing him to do that and rather pointed out that he resume his seat and wait after the judgment. He can go ahead and tell the court what he wanted to tell the court. So then came the judgment. Now, Mr. Amidu had told the court that he had information that suggested that following the court granting the AG the go ahead to go examine Mr. Amidu, Mr. Woyome had gone ahead to threaten the president that if they dare put him in a witness box, he's going to mention the names of NDC and government appointees who had benefited from the said amount. So because of that, that is why he felt the AG had decided not to go ahead with the examination. Then again, he also pointed out that 2 years after that judgment, the state had failed to retrieve any amount. At that point, no amount had been retrieved. It was after he had filed that particular motion that some 4 million cedis was retrieved from Mr. Woyome. So he said he's the one who brought the matter before the court under Article 2, as a citizen of the country. He should be allowed to examine Mr. Woyome, to ask him which assets he owns, then again, which persons received the money or which accounts those monies went into, so that if you know those accounts, you can quickly retrieve the money. But the judge in his judgment first and foremost said that that particular claim about the president being threatened, he said he failed to provide evidence to substantiate the claim. So that had been struck out from the court's document. But then again, in terms of the substantive request, that was granted by the court. And the point the judge is making is that this is the same man who came to the court and secured the judgment in favor of the state. Moreover, the money, if it's retrieved, it's not going into the pocket of Mr. Amidu, but it's going into the pocket of the state. So why should he prevent him from examining Mr. Woyome?
Okay, that's what the court said. Mr. Amidu came to court today with an expectation. He got it. What was his reaction?
I mean, in fact, like I pointed out earlier, he had wanted to say something. And the point he made to the judge was that what he wanted to say will have an impact on what is before the court. Now, this is a man, from that posture, it clearly explained that he was a bit uncertain about the judgment. Now, the judgment is delivered and he's asked again, you said you wanted to say something to the court. You can do that now. Mr. Amidu says, the judgment satisfies that which I wanted to say. So I'm no longer going to present or file anything before the court anymore. I'm ready for the oral examination to take place.
Was he a man smiling in court today?
I didn't see him smile, honestly. He came in calmly, he sat down. He had this interesting hat on. He said he sat down quietly. Right after the judgment was delivered, he moved away swiftly.
Okay. Now, that's for one side. Mr. Amidu, the man who went to court demanding that this motion be granted for him. That's been done. What about the other side, Mr. Woyome?
Well, so Francis, you can see in our shots, Mr. Woyome, that was when he was going in. This is when he's coming out of the courtroom. He clearly didn't look happy, I must say, as he exited the court premises. There were some who were in his company who made the work of the camera guys who were taking the shots a bit difficult. We'll see later in the shot a gentleman asking the camera guys to stop taking the shots because they were not happy about that. So he kept moving up and down. He was speaking to us at this end, and then he moved over to the other end to speak to us.
What did he say?
He was talking about the fact that they were going to fight this to the end, and that was one statement that I quite remember. So he moved over to the other side to speak to his lawyer, and he tried moving back again, and this time he's signaling us to put the camera aside. We should stop showing the camera on him. He wants to move away.
How long was this session of him being outside?
It was very brief. I mean, he essentially wanted to speak to his lawyer. He spoke to him. He moved away from him, came back again, spoke to the lawyer. then moved. There was just those who were following him who were not exactly happy about how things had turned out. Same with Mr. Woyome himself. And the point that even in court when the judgment was delivered, his lawyer, Ken Anku, in fact demanded for a copy of the court orders, and the judge said that the orders were very clear and that later on they will be making the document available to them in order that in case they want any appeal, they can go ahead and appeal if necessary, if they want to undertake that. So that is Mr. Woyome as he exited the court premises following that judgment coming from the Supreme Court asking that Mr. Amidu be allowed to examine him on November 24.
Okay. Last question, Joseph. The state, the Attorney General, did he have any representation in court today?
Yes, a Chief State Attorney, Gloria Bedu, was in court on behalf of the Attorney General. At the earlier date when the oral arguments were presented, Dr. Dominic Ayene, the Deputy Attorney General, was in court. By this time around, the Chief State Attorney took his place. She didn't say anything. She simply walked out of the courtroom. But clearly, we can understand that they are not happy with this judgment coming from the court. Okay.
Thank you, Joseph, for those details from the court today. Already, the expectation is that next week, Thursday, Mr. Woyome will be examined by Martin A.B.K. Amidu, the former Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana. We'll see how that plays out. And already there have been some interpretations to this. After the break, we'll bring you sports. But we have a video that you would love. It has two gentlemen dancing after they heard that Mr. Woyome will be examined in court. I'll tell you who these individuals are after sports. Stay with us.